The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's the 16th of September, 2025. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher, CaneSport.com, joined this morning by Stephen Wagner and Luke Chaney as we discuss the news of the day. And the first news of the day is we had Matt Shodell sleep in this morning, thank God. But we do have his new column on the website that everyone I'm sure is enjoying. What's up, Miami Hurricane fans? Are you? So you guys can, that want your fix of Shodell in the morning, can go and check out his latest installment of what we hope is, I'm not going to call it a satire column. I'm not going to call it a humor column. I'm going to call it an entertaining column. How about that? And hopefully you guys are being entertained by his 5-day-a-week efforts on all of our behalfs to entertain you when you wake up in the morning. But today we're going to talk about a number of different topics. We had a chance to talk to Mario Cristobal on multiple occasions yesterday, plus the coordinators, and those stories are up on the website. Nothing earth-shattering really came out of those sessions. Other than that, we do expect to see JoJo Trader and Jordan Lyle this weekend against Florida, and hopefully that's the case. Everyone's been waiting with great anticipation, especially Luke Chaney. Great anticipation for those guys to finally make their appearance in the Hurricane lineup and hopefully make it even more explosive than it was against South Florida, which was pretty damn explosive considering they scored 49 points. Let's say 42 points. The last was kind of like a little tack-on touchdown. We'll say they scored 42 points to be real, and really that was with a couple interceptions in there. And I mean the offense is just humming really, really well, other than the turnovers. So all that stuff is on the website for you to check out today. But we wanted to go a little bit off on a different tangent this morning since it's early in the week and the Gators don't get here until Saturday, and there will be plenty of buildup for that game, even with Florida on a 2-game losing streak. They are going to come in here. People are giving me a hard time because, like I said, it's a Super Bowl for them. Well, yeah, it's not Florida State. Yes, Florida State's a bigger rival for Florida than Miami, but they're on a 2-game losing streak, okay? So if I'm saying this is a Super Bowl for Florida, trying to stop a 2-game losing streak, trying to get their coaching staff from being fired, or at least their head coach from being fired for obvious reasons, wanting to get their supposedly all-world quarterback on a better track than what he's been, Mr. DJ Lagway, 5 interceptions at LSU last weekend. I never really liked that guy, by the way, guys. I've always thought he was overrated, and I'm not like playing the result here. Watch him throw for 300 Saturday at Hard Rock. But, it's the Super Bowl for Florida, okay? And for a number of reasons. They're trying to get some life back into their season and get rid of the doom and gloom atmosphere around their program. We're going to talk about the overwhelming abundance of recruits from throughout the state that are going to be in attendance at Hard Rock on Saturday. And plus it's Florida, Miami. You got game day coming to campus in the morning, national TV at night. So listen, this is a big deal this weekend. Yes, it is a Super Bowl for Florida. Miami has to match that intensity. I think they will. But this could be a more difficult game than a lot of people think because of the emotions involved, the effort that I'm expecting from Florida, and the fact that every game in a football season is never all easy. Okay, I don't care how good you are. They're not all going to be walks in the park. Okay, and this is one that figures to not be. So despite the 1-2 Gator record, the fact that they slipped up against South Florida, you could throw all that out the window on Saturday. But let's shift gears, like I said, and I want to first talk about the fact that Miami has an advantage in recruiting this year, the way I see it, and I'll see if Stephen and Luke agree with me. You have 8 home games, okay, and you got some pretty good opponents that have been coming in here between Notre Dame and even South Florida and now Florida. You got Louisville in a few weeks and some others down the road. These are better home games than what Miami's had in recent years. And to me, that is inspiring a lot of really high quality recruits to come walking through the gates at Hard Rock. Stephen, let me start with you. Am I onto something here? Do you think that the fact that Miami's playing a more attractive schedule is drawing a better quality of recruit to come visit the recruiting section at Hard Rock Stadium and get FaceTime with the Miami staff and the Miami coaches?
Yeah, I definitely think that there is absolutely a direct correlation between a team's ability to schedule marquee matchups and how easy it is to get players to come down for these games. Because not only is it great for the fans, and the fans know that they're going to be really fired up, but that means the players are going to be exposed to a really electric atmosphere. And that really does matter to 16 and 17-year-old kids who are really impressionable. You hear about players going to some of these big SEC schools or some of these Big Ten schools and hearing about how electric the atmosphere is, what it's like to experience LSU's Death Valley at night, what it's like to make a trip up to Columbus and see the shoe, what it's like to go to Penn State for a whiteout game. That really does make an impact with a lot of these players. They want to feel the kind of environment that they're going to be playing in. They want to feel they want to feel what it's going to command whenever they step out onto the field. I also think that it definitely helps Miami that their schedule this year is very front-loaded because, quite honestly, we've seen Miami get off to much, much better starts under Mario Cristobal than they've had finishes. Each of the first 3 years that I've been here, 2023 was my first season with CaneSport. They obviously got off to a really good start. They were ranked midway through the season. Then obviously Georgia Tech happened and kind of the wheels fell off and they kind of to the finish line. Last year they get off to that roaring start before again they end up losing to Georgia Tech. They were like 9-0, 8-0, something like that. Before things kind of fell off at the end. And this year, they're off to another really, really hot start. Now, obviously, Miami wants to change that. They want to keep their foot on the gas the entire season, and they want to maintain this momentum all the way through what's hopefully going to be an ACC championship appearance. But I think having this amount of preseason hype and getting, a top 10 preseason ranking and knocking off a top 10 opponent in the first week of the season and now propelling yourself into the top 5, now you're getting a rivalry game. You're getting college game day. You are getting all of this hype around the program that Miami has been able to build through the offseason. And now I think Miami finally has the chance to really exploit this in a massive way on the recruiting trail. We saw a couple of recruits start to trend very positively toward Miami after the Notre Dame game. I entered picks for Miami to land Nick Lanier and Mishai Dobson, who I still feel really, really good about right after the Notre Dame game. I think those kids are going to end up at Miami probably at some point this fall. And then this weekend, we've got another really just stacked visitor list. Right now, Nolan Wilson, the top 70 defensive lineman, one of Miami's top defensive line flip targets, is going to be back on campus. So far, he's the biggest name that we've confirmed in the 2026 class outside of Miami's commits. Although I do want to make a quick note that Jackson Cantwell is going to be back at Miami this fall. He'll be at the Florida game, he'll be at Miami this weekend. He'll be at the Florida game, and he'll be at the Stanford game. He wasn't able to make it to the Notre Dame game, but he's going to be back again. So I'm really excited to see how this list ends up filling out as the week goes on. We've already confirmed a number of really interesting 2027 names on the site, and then we've gone ahead and confirmed Wilson and 3-star 2026 defensive lineman Frederick Santius. Those are two names that we're going to monitor incredibly closely. Santius, I'm starting to think that I might be inching toward entering a crystal ball for Santias. I feel like my finger's kind of on the trigger there.
All right, Luke, you were a student on campus the last time College Game Day came here. I think you were a student on campus. I've kind of lost track. I've kind of lost track of your academic exploits, but let me know. No, I guess you probably weren't. I'm sorry.
Holy crap. How old am I? I thought I was the young one. He wasn't even in college whenever Miami got college game day.
I was a freshman in high school.
That was me losing track of Luke's academic adventures on that front. But college game day on Saturday, regardless, is what I wanted to talk about. And those guys come rolling into town and brings a whole level of excitement to the campus. And obviously, they're going to do it at the Union, and they'll have things going on the lake, and they'll have people diving off the diving boards and just showing off Miami and the beauty of the campus and all that. And they're going to try to get some recruits down to watch the taping of that show as well. What impact do you feel that all this buzz that Miami's being able to generate off of its early season schedule, off of these big games, what impact do you think it's having on recruiting?
Oh, I think it's having a large impact. This is Miami's first time hosting a game day in 8 years. I was 14. So it's been a while in terms of that. And just with recruiting, as you and as Steven spoke on a bit earlier, the amount of quality games that Miami's getting at home this year is just huge for recruiting, huge for showing prospects like, hey, you're going to play an atmosphere at Hard Rock Stadium that is a force to be reckoned with. And that's been a thing for, Miami in the past, that, their environment isn't all that spectacular. Well, so far this season, if you look at 2 of the 3 home games that, Miami's hosted prospects at, Notre Dame was a sold-out crowd. South Florida was a nearly sold-out crowd, very good environment. We're going to see in the UF game, I'm sure that's going to be sold out too. It's going to be a packed environment. So just the quality of opponent and the just high profile primetime matchup of these games is huge, for the Hurricanes and their recruiting efforts. I mean, the prospects have been saying a lot of quality things just about the atmosphere, the environment, and I think it's played off so far on the trail.
All right, so Steven mentioned Nolan Wilson. He's the defensive lineman, very highly regarded, that Miami wants real badly. Another one that mentioned is Frederick Sancius. I hope I pronounced the name right, but
I'm pretty sure it's Santius. I'm pretty sure it's Santius.
Santius, okay, all right, we'll call him Santius. A very unique recruiting situation. I mean, this is a kid that was kind of off the radar. Then he commits to FAU. Then Power 4 schools start getting interested in him. He gets very, very, very entwined with Michigan State to the point where we're hearing behind the scenes that he's very likely to possibly flip to Michigan State. Then Miami gets a look at his game film. I think he had 5 sacks last week. He goes to Fort Myers St. John Newman, or Naples St. John Newman. I believe that's in Naples, right? But, he gets 5 sacks last week. And now the word is getting out that this is a kid on the upswing. And Miami has gotten very, very interested in him. Luke, you spoke to him, wrote about him, stories on the website right now. Your thoughts on this recruitment of Santius and where you think it's going from the Miami standpoint?
Yeah, so just it's kind of funny with Santius because, previously before I joined CaneSport, I did a lot of FAU coverage and one of the last stories I wrote about was his commitment story to FAU. And with Santius, he is relatively new to the sport of football. Born in Haiti, moved here in the middle of his freshman year. Didn't start playing football at all until that spring when the coaches saw him in the hallways. They're like, whoa, what are you not doing on the football field? So he began in the spring of his freshman year, started his sophomore year on JV. He's 6'5", 280, so you know how that went. Moved up to varsity, and he's just been improving ever since. And still as a prospect, he was very unknown until around the June time period when he started going to camps. Coaches started to see his frame, just the way he moved at his size, and that's when his recruiting started to take off. Got those 2 offers from FAU, then from FIU, committed to FAU, and then that's when some of the major programs have started to roll around, schools like Miami, Michigan State, Florida. And now as Miami has evaluated his senior film, they see that, hey, this is a guy that, we think that they absolutely want to take. That's someone who is lifted into that high priority status and someone that we feel pretty good about. Santias really enjoyed his visit this past weekend to USF. He loved the atmosphere. He loved the vibe of it. We think he's probably going to end up playing college somewhere in the Sunshine State, given that he does go to school in Naples. And like we said, or like Steven said, he's going to be back next weekend for the Florida game. Really huge gaining back on campus, or gaining back at Hard Rock for consecutive weekends. And we think Miami's in a pretty good spot for Santias, who is really tapping into the potential that he just has as his frame. Like I said, he moves so well at his 6'5", 280 pound size, can really rush the passer for an interior guy on the defensive line, and someone that we like a lot. And that's going to continue rising throughout his senior year.
All right, Miami's also on the hunt for a running back in the next class. Well, multiple running backs really in the next class. But one guy that they've I guess I'm just going to use the word whiffed because they haven't gotten them, is Derek Cooper. He's committed to Texas, and Miami will try like hell to flip this kid all the way into mid-December. But we're not sure it's going to happen. Just to keep it real, it looks like he's got a pretty strong bond with Texas right now. So they're looking at other running backs. Okay. And there's going to be a lot of them, at Hard Rock on Saturday, several of them. And Stephen, one of them that they're hoping to get down is Jay Lamar from the state of Georgia, a guy that's been very high up on Miami's running back board from the very beginning. It's been not the easiest recruitment, I don't think. I mean, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but where does Miami stand with Jay Lamar, and what do you think the chances are that he makes it to the Gator game on Saturday?
Yeah, so from what I've heard, Miami's definitely going to keep trying with Lamar. The Hurricanes are actively involved. They've kept recruiting Lamar. It kind of felt like this summer after he committed to Georgia, and when it still looked like Miami was probably going to get Derek Cooper, it seemed like things kind of fell off a little bit because Miami was anticipating getting Cooper and then having Cooper and Mallory as their running back duo before Texas swooped in and was able to pull Cooper away. But this fall, Miami has kept in touch with Lamar. They've done a very good job with Lamar and have kind of, I think, stayed in his picture. And I definitely think are going to have a chance. It hasn't been confirmed, but I have heard that there is a chance that he will be at Florida for the game on Saturday. So that's someone that we are going to continue.
At Miami for the game on Saturday.
Or, excuse me, yes,
at Hard Rock, yeah.
At Miami for the Florida game on Saturday.
There you go.
That is someone who we are
going to get confused, Like I don't want anybody to show up in Canesville on Saturday. The game is at Hard Rock.
But Miami was right there in the mix for him whenever he committed to Georgia. It kind of seemed like the week leading up to his commitment, the 2 weeks leading up to his commitment, it felt like Miami was a very, very plausible landing spot. I remember talking to him after his Miami official visit. I remember talking to people around him after his Miami official visit. It felt awesome, like where Miami sat. At one point, I really thought it was a coin flip whether he was going to go to Miami or whether he was going to go to Georgia. Obviously, he ended up picking Georgia. Miami has circled back on him. Miami is very much alive in this race. There is a non-zero chance that they could end up flipping him, especially if they end up not being able to get Derek Cooper. It would not stun me if they got Jay Lamar. I definitely think it would be a little bit of a surprise, but I wouldn't exactly say I'd be shocked if Lamar ended up a Hurricane. So we'll see if they are able to successfully get him down to campus this weekend. If they are able to get him to campus, I'll definitely be more confident about their chances.
All right, we have so much more to talk about today, but first, let's take a moment to hear from our friends at Caneswear.
Welcome to Caneswear. New store, new items, same great experience. Family owned and operated since 2010, CaneSport has the latest merchandise from the Miami Hurricanes, Miami Dolphins, Florida Panthers, Inter Miami CF, and more. Come visit us at our store in Davie on University Drive, just south of 595, or online at caneswear.com. CaneSport, the spot Miami fans shop.
All right, Luke, we've been building a list. Far from complete at this point, this early in the week, but some big names are starting to pop up. In addition to the ones we've mentioned, who else is showing up on the recruiting list already for Saturday?
Yeah, so just taking a look at the recruiting list that is far from final. We won't get the final list for probably a few days from now. But, I mean, so far already, some really marquee, especially 2027 guys who we expect to be in attendance. Most notably at the wide receiver position. We'll start things off with four-star wide receiver Monchun Sales, who's the number 20 overall prospect and the number 4 wide receiver in the 27 class, as well as four-star wide receiver Dakota Garant, I believe I'm pronouncing his last name right, another top 25 prospect, top 5 receiver in his class. And then other receivers like Quinn Burrell, who's the 43 overall prospect, and the number 9 receiver in his class. With all these prospects at receiver coming in, one thing that really kind of stuck out to me from last weekend, what four-star 2027 receiver Jacob Thomas told me, and he's a name that I also could see coming to the Florida game as well. Just watching some of these young guys like Malachi Toney and Joshua Moore play such an early impact as freshmen, it really shows these prospects are like, hey, I have the opportunity to come to Miami, and if I work my butt off and I do what I need to do, there's the pathway to playing time there, right? Like it's the way the Hurricanes have been operating, especially at the wide receiver position. It doesn't operate based by seniority. Like if you can play, you will play right away. Just as Malachi Toney has started in the slot, just as Joshua Moore has emerged as a legit two deep option for them. And that gives Miami just such a big thing for them to recruit off of, and then for them to pitch some of these top 100 blue chip guys off of. Is like, hey, you're talented. If you come to Miami, and like I said, if you do what you need to do, yeah, there's a pathway to early playing time. And that's not the case at every big name school. So Miami has that working for them at that position. But, in addition to the receivers, Tyson Robinson, a 4-star running back, number 26 overall prospect in the second the second best running back in that 27 class. We expect him as well as 4-star athlete Myson Johnson Cook, who is the number 2 athlete and the number 27 prospect in that 27 class. And then in the 28 class, a name that Steven has talked about extensively, Myshie Dobson. We expect him to make his return to Miami for the Florida game. He's been a Hard Rock multiple times this year. We think he's close to potentially, committing to Miami. Just a really intriguing frame as a sophomore edge. Someone that's, 2 or 3 years down the road, I think we can really can develop into a really solid player. And it's a growing list. So we're going to be adding names throughout this week. And we expect it to be a pretty large crop of recruits visiting for the Florida game when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that list is going to grow exponentially, and we'll be all over it and adding to it for you guys as the week goes on. All right, new rankings came out yesterday, and there were some really interesting moves on this thing. Steven, I mean, for one, Samurian Wingo, the receiver committed to Miami, he jumped 90 spots to number 62 overall now. Without question, was one of the biggest risers in this rankings update, going from 152 to 62. Tell us what else was notable in this latest release of rankings and how it impacted Miami.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that I noticed whenever I was looking at the updated rankings list was very obviously at the top of the list, Jackson Cantwell is still the number 1 player in America. That's definitely significant for Hurricane fans. They're trying to sign the number 1 or the first number 1 overall prospect in the modern recruiting era. Depending on what recruiting services you were using back in the day, DJ Williams was the number one player in the country. I think that would have been the 2000 recruiting class, maybe the 2001 recruiting class. Gary, you'd know better than me, but he's still going to be the number one prospect in America. Samorian Wingo jumps from number 152 to number 62. And I talked with On3's director of scouting and rankings, Charles Power, and it was just a combination of traits meet productivity. They've seen improvement where they wanted to see improvement. He was always kind of, a bigger body possession receiver who could go up on the perimeter and win these 50-50 jump balls. But now he's combining that with an increased burst, some increased quickness, improved separation. I mean, really everywhere that they felt like they needed improvement, they're seeing that improvement. And it's looking like Miami came through with another really good evaluation here. He was an early find for Kevin Beard back in 2023 when he was a sophomore. I mean, I remember seeing Wingo coming to Miami games whenever he was a high school sophomore, and now that effort is finally paying off. It was always most likely that he was probably going to end up at Miami or Florida. He ends up at Miami. Florida has completely fallen off the rails. That program is staring down the barrel of 1-4 or maybe 1-5 to start the season. The Fire Billy chants are back, so I no longer really consider Florida very much of a threat. And South Carolina, the other school that was in the mix for him, they've more or less kind of cooled communication. They're not really talking nearly as much anymore. So Wingo's all Canes. I expect him to be here. There are a couple of other notable kind of risers and fallers. Darion Coleman did fall quite a bit. He's now ranked somewhere around the 230 range. He's obviously incredibly solid with the Hurricanes. We don't expect him to go anywhere anytime soon. Jalen Waters, who was previously Miami's second highest commit in the Rivals 300. He's now the number 115 overall prospect. Looking down the list here, Ben Congdon, the offensive tackle from Ohio. He continues to climb. He's now at 132. He jumped 25 spots, and this is a guy who's just kind of been one of those really steady risers over the last couple of months. I remember whenever Miami first offered him in December, he was kind of a no-name guy, and I think he was either a low 3-star, or he might have even been unranked at that point. I can't quite remember. But he climbed up to a 4-star this spring, and he was an on-3 outlier. Now he's all the way up to the 130. So, excuse me. He's all the way up to the 130. So he is really continuing a really impressive climb. You can find the rest of our guys, or you can find the rest of Miami's commits and how they rose, how they fell, where some of their targets sit on the website. That's all I got on rankings, Gary.
So Darion Coleman dropping 65 spots or whatever. Like what the hell's up with that? What do you think?
I'll be honest. I really don't know because I haven't had the chance to see his senior tape yet. I know that one of the reasons why he climbed so highly during the spring was because he was an absolute monster on the 7-on-7 circuit. He climbed all the way to, I think it was like the 160 range, the 170 range, somewhere around there. Now we're getting into the fall. We're playing serious football again. I personally have not had the chance to see him in person, so I cannot tell you, what scouts are seeing. I haven't had.
I've seen some highlight tapes of him and stuff. It doesn't look like his play has regressed. I mean, I'm just surprised. Like he had really gotten very well regarded during the 7-on-7 season, and that's a lot of spots to drop. So we'll have to see what's up there. I mean,
I haven't had a chance to watch like an actual game. I haven't had a chance to watch coaches film. I too have seen highlights, but I can't tell you what he's doing on a play-to-play.
I'm going to put you on the case. You're now officially on the case by executive order. I am putting you on the Darion Coleman case, and I expect you at some point here to report back to us and let us know what's up and why he's dropping. And does that impact his recruitment by Miami? I mean, probably not.
No.
But it's interesting. You take a look now. Obviously, whenever there's a rankings update, the first thing that I always do in this rankings update is I go look at the team recruiting rankings because I want to see what kind of impact the new rankings have had on the team recruiting rankings. And it's interesting because Miami is sitting here. They got 22 commits in this class already, but they're only the number 12 ranked team in the country. And a lot of schools have the same basic ballpark number of commits. Notre Dame's got 27, USC's got 32, Georgia's got 31. That skews their numbers a little bit. But Miami's not showing as high in the team rankings as I thought they might. Because, Stephen, on face value, I mean, we feel like this is a pretty decent class that's building, right?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And right now, it really is hard to put a ton of effort into actively monitoring recruiting rankings. I remember, I think back in 2023, Notre Dame and Texas Tech were number 1 and number 2 in the recruiting rankings for their 2025 classes, because at that point, they already had something like 18 or 19 commits. And so even in Texas Tech's case, where the overwhelming majority of them were 3-star commits, they had a higher composite score because they just had more recruits. So it's kind of hard to judge, where exactly a class sits, if you're just looking at it from that standpoint. But I do think Miami is most likely going to end up finishing in the top 10 of the team recruiting rankings. I feel really good about the guys that they've got. There really aren't, like for the most part, I look at the guys that they have in this class and I'm like, wow, those are really good players. Regardless of where they're ranked or how Miami had to get them or who Miami had to beat out for them, I feel pretty good about where they sit. And I think so far they've proven that, I know they got a lot of crap for the 2025 class that they've signed. That 2025 class has a lot of guys who look like they've hit really quickly. Malachi Toney, instant impact. Joshua Moore, instant impact. Bryce Fitzgerald, interceptions in back-to-back games. You're seeing like some dudes who are coming in and making impacts very, very quickly. So, rankings definitely are something. There absolutely is something to the blue chip ratio. That's absolutely a real thing. It's been proven over and over and over again. I mean, like the one team or the two teams that didn't play or that played for a national championship that didn't have the blue chip ratio were TCU and Washington. Outside of that, I mean, pretty much everyone's fallen into the blue chip ratio. But it looks like Miami's evaluation skills really have taken a step in the right direction. And, I've had a chance to watch a lot of the commits play so far this year. And I feel pretty good about the majority of guys that they've got.
All right, one guy we're really seriously tracking is 2027 quarterback Trent Seaborn. We got a story about him on the website. And, man, he had a great trip down here for the South Florida game, and you could just see the romance kind of really take shape after the experience at Hard Rock on Saturday with Seaborn. I mean, he was gushing about Miami. Miami seems to be returning the affection. Where do you think that one's going, Stephen?
I really like the job that Miami has done with him. I'm right there in my belief that the Hurricanes are going to be right in this recruitment until the end. We heard some buzz around South Carolina last week after he visited South Carolina. The Gamecocks were in a really good position heading into that visit. I felt like the Gamecocks were in a really good position heading out of that visit. But now we're saying the exact same thing about Miami. And, I personally have not been able to find out how he still feels about some of these other schools, because he's an incredibly political kid who's incredibly smart and knows exactly what to say and what not to say. And that is the thing that I think is so important, that so many people in the world just do not understand, is sometimes the value of not saying anything. And Trent Seaborn is very good about understanding when he should speak and when he shouldn't speak. So he's playing his cards incredibly close to the chest. His camp are playing their cards incredibly close to the chest. We'll see if Miami
is it close to the vest. Isn't that the saying?
I thought it was close to the chest. Like you're playing poker and
vest, close
Hold,
to the chest.
hold your heart.
What is it, Luke? What is it? Is it close to the vest or close to the chest?
I'm Googling this right now.
Come on, Google it for us
Like,
real
so
quick.
The first search result is close to the vest or chest. So a lot of people. Okay, so actually they're both right. You guys are both right.
Okay, all right, good.
All right.
I was about to be really
I didn't
pissed off
mean to interrupt. I'm usually interrupting Matt, and I get in all kinds of trouble. I guess it's become habitual, but I apologize. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh, thank fucking God. Yeah, I feel really good about the position that the Hurricanes are in. I'd say that I'd probably give Miami, I don't know, probably somewhere in like the 35-40% chance range, just because he is also going to take visits to Alabama and Auburn and Oregon, and he's also high on South Carolina. Those are really the 5 schools that we are monitoring the closest for him. But
it's worth us getting excited about.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And you love him as a player.
Yes, absolutely. It's worth getting excited about because bottom line is Miami is very much in the recruitment of their top quarterback prospect in this cycle. This was one of the first names that we really heard of this spring, along with Peyton Houston. Those were the 2 names that we heard were right at the top of Miami's board. Peyton Houston and Trent Seaborn. Peyton Houston's at LSU, but Miami has been all in on Seaborn since this summer. I mean, like they have gone.
And he's been to campus. He's taken the tours.
He's been to campus twice. He was down here once during the spring for a practice visit. Came back here again during the summer during what was the official visit weekend for 2026's. While they were on official visits, Shannon Dawson was hanging out with Trent Seaborn on an unofficial visit. He hopes to have a decision made by the end of the fall. This is probably going to be the last time that Trent Seaborn gets to Miami before he makes a decision. I think it's really helped Miami that they have looked really good and really buttoned up offensively through the first 3 games of the year. I mean, the offensive line has looked great. The receivers look a lot better than I think a lot of us were expecting them to look. I thought that there were going to be some real growing pains. It doesn't really look like that. Carson Beck has looked comfortable. He's looked composed. He looks poised. Everything looks like it's going right with Carson Beck. And I think that really speaks to Trent a lot because his high school team basically runs like a high school version of Shannon Dawson's offense. I mean, this is something that you kind of see quite a bit in high school football is them taking, kind of a generic college offense like Dawson's and then breaking it down for a high school player to be able to understand, because Luke Nickel basically ran this offense at Milton too. And so now Seaborn's running it at Thompson. He's a really, really good player. Miami wants him very badly. And I like Miami's position. I'm not going out and predicting Miami's going to get him by any means because there is still a long way to go. And he's, he's a smart kid. He understands that he shouldn't rush this thing and that this is going to be a really, really big decision. He wants to commit early so he can lock in with the school and, so he can, be able to focus on the stuff that he's going to have to do off the field, to be able to get ready to early enroll. And all that stuff, not to mention going ahead and starting to recruit, some of the class. He doesn't want to be in a position where he's going to have to decommit or he's going to have to make like a bunch of flips or anything like that. He wants to do this once. He wants it to be over with. And I don't think that he's jerking anyone around either. I think that he just knows that the best way for him to play this is for the only person to really know what he wants to do is him. And I guess probably his parents too. We'll see what happens, but I feel pretty good about where Miami sits with him.
But as of now, he is not coming to the Gator game, correct?
No, he is not. That is going to be the USF game last week is the only Miami game that he's going to get to this year. Outside of that, it would be a shock if we see him back on campus again. That's probably it because he does have business set with other schools.
All right. Well, we got something that's going to make up for that, don't we, Luke? We're going to shift gears here to basketball and Jay Lucas and the great job he's doing out on the recruiting trail. And Miami is getting a visit that will begin, I believe, Thursday night from Brandon McCoy. He is the best guard in the United States of America. He is the number 2 overall player in this next recruiting cycle. Miami is in the game. Luke, you spoke to him. Talk to us about how significant this visit is for the Hurricanes and what you think their chances are of winning over Brandon McCoy this weekend.
Massive. I mean, this is just ultra massive. Brandon McCoy, yeah, you said it, best guard in the country, number 2 overall player, just a really program changing prospect. And I truthfully mean that. I mean, I think he's one of the better guards to leave the high school ranks or from the high school ranks in a few years. I mean, he would if it wasn't for Tyron Stokes, who's a incredible prospect, who's the number 1 player in the country. He would be the best. He would be that guy. He would be the number 1 guy.
And he still could become that. Who knows?
He still could become that. There's still plenty of time left. But an unbelievable 6'4" combo guard. A really the thing that I like with Miami and McCoy is that just with Jay Lucas's defensive background and what he likes from his guards in the defensive end, Brandon McCoy is all of that. I mean, McCoy is a, well-built 6'4", 6'5" perimeter defender, a lot like Drew Holiday for the Portland Trailblazers, just in the way that they defend. McCoy likes to pick up, ball handlers 75 feet away from the basket and make them struggle for every dribble. Just a really, really fiery competitor, an amazing player, a guy that, truthfully, up until recently, that I didn't think Miami was involved with a guy like him, but they are. He's also taken a visit to Alabama. That was in early September. He also took an OV to Duke in late November 2024. Kansas, Michigan, USC are also involved with him. But I think Miami has a shot here. I mean, they're really going after a lot of blue chip guys. I mean, at every cycle,
they got the commitment. They got the NIL commitment from the university and the collective, and they're not playing. They're just like they're not playing in football. They're not playing in basketball either. They are looking to get this program and feed off of that Final Four appearance a couple of years ago and really make Miami a serious basketball school.
They have, as you said, they have the monetary commitment for basketball. I feel like there were a decent amount of skeptics when Lucas was hired because they saw his resume and they were like, hey, this guy has never been a head coach before. But at the same time, he's been a number 1 recruiting guy at multiple schools, at Texas, at Duke, at Kentucky. He knows what it takes to win in this era. He knows how to navigate the NIL scene, the transfer portal scene, how to relate to a lot of high-end recruits. I mean, we saw what he did in the end of the 2025 cycle, right? I mean, he came to Miami late in the process and
put a whole team together. Amazing.
Put a whole team together, and he signed.
And it looks like they'll be decent. Like, I don't know if they're going to win the national title or anything, but it looks like they're going to be very competitive.
I think. I mean, we'll get into season predictions later on. I think they'll be competitive. I'm not sure how much it will click early on, but I mean, they signed Sheldon Henderson right away, and he's one of the top freshmen in program history, right? So Lucas is an incredible recruiter.
Players from Europe.
Great players from Europe. You have some incredible ace recruiters in the staff. Eric Pastrana, an ace recruiter at Georgia. He helped bring along players like Cade Cunningham to Oklahoma State, Anthony Edwards to Georgia. So he's done it before. And if you just look at the caliber of player that Miami has gotten on campus so far through this stretch of official visits the past couple of months, I mean, these aren't your – I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but these aren't your normal, like, Miami basketball guys. These are blue chip, top 50 players, one-and-done type guys. Dylan Mingo, number 3 player in the country. Caleb Gaskins, a local kid who I think Miami has a pretty good shot at on the heels of his OV this past weekend. Caleb Gaskins, Jackson Richardson, the son of former NBA player Jason Richardson, who's another top 30 player who Miami likes. The Hurricanes are in a good spot recruiting-wise. We'll see who ends up popping. I mean, they're not going to get every player. They're going to miss on some guys, but it just speaks to an ideological shift under Jay Lucas, whereas, like, hey, they're trying to position Miami as a national powerhouse, as one of these programs that could compete year in, year out. They don't want to be a program that could compete once every 6 to 7 years if everything goes right. No, they want to increase the foundational talent level to where, some years are going to be better than others, but the baseline is going to be pretty good. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's going to be a busy next couple of months, and I am very excited to hear what happens with Brandon McCoy this weekend. He's going to get in on Friday morning, not the Thursday night, Friday morning to late Sunday is what I've heard, and it should be interesting to see how that develops.
Very, and I got to give the university a lot of credit because it's like they took a leap of faith. It's a risk when you hire a head coach who's never been a head coach before. I mean, there's no shame in admitting that is a risk. It's a risky hire, but they are giving Jay Lucas everything that he can possibly need to have a chance to be successful, and he has the budget to go get players, and they're not putting any handcuffs on him in that regard. And he's showing that he still has to win with McCoy. He still has to win with some of these other guys he's recruiting, but he's showing that he can get in the game. Okay. And when you're in the game and you got the budget behind you, you're going to get your share of guys. And it's going to be very exciting to see, watch Jay Lucas moving forward here and how he can develop this program. So far, I think we are in agreement that we like what we're seeing from the entire operation there and how they're running things, the quality of the staff he's put together, certainly from a recruiting standpoint. And it's going to be fun to see this Miami program blossom. Jimmy Larinaga is probably sitting over there in retirement saying, where was all this money when I was coaching? When the players were coming in and trying to hold them up for $1 million contracts and stuff, and Miami just didn't even have the money to think about it. Jay Lucas has the budget, and it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do with it. All right, that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you so much for starting out your morning with us. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please, you see the information at the bottom of your screen. Go to CaneSport.com, become a member of our community, and you will not be sorry. We got a great community of fans, and we do everything we do every single day is thanks to your subscriptions, and we do the best that we can to make you guys the most informed fans in the entire United States of America. So for Stephen Wagner and Luke Chaney, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time, everybody. Have a great day.